All right, welcome back, Wealth Builders. This is another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. My name is Kyle Demian, and I'm here as always with Renji Matthew. Today we're talking about finding purpose in your struggle. A week ago or 2 weeks ago, we did another podcast on, some of the things that we've had to overcome in business, and we had a few people reach out that it was very helpful for business owners to hear our perspective, and also like how we've come out on the other side. And not that we're not still struggling or going through failures in our business today, but I like to say that, any obstacle that comes up in life is a good point for just to keep going ahead, right? And to work through it and to get through it and then take that obstacle and learn from it and apply it into your business for the future. So we're going to talk about how to find purpose in your struggle. And Renji, I'm going to turn it over to you. Kind of, if you want, give us a background, on how we came up with this idea for today, and then kind of start us off on the conversation.
Yeah, so it was actually something that the speaker at church talked about Sunday, and finding purpose in the struggle when you go through things and stuff like that. And it was crazy because we, for most of you that know, we're coming out with a course on, basic finances, stuff like that we should have been taught when we're growing up in school. And we were trying to put it out by this week, and I was supposed to record a bunch of it on Saturday. And when we woke up on Saturday morning, we woke up to a wet floor. Our carpet was drenched and everything, and we found a leak in the house. And so the whole day was gone, and we didn't get to record anything because of that. And I slowly started losing my voice on Friday. So we were just thinking, what? And then, so that message, even though he was talking about like something more deeper, way worse than what we were going through, it just made me think, finding purpose in the struggle. You're going to go through so many battles in life. You're going to go through so many downfalls, so many struggles in life, especially for business owners that are trying to start a business. You have a great idea. You think that would benefit so many people. And, you're struggling to find motivation, or struggling to find a reason to start, or to even, you don't even know how to start maybe, or you were like me and did all the research you needed to do, and you knew everything about a subject, but you just didn't know how to start, or you were just too scared to start. Right. And both Kyle and I have made so many mistakes in our past, and we'll talk about some of that here. And one of the things I could talk about is how I got into doing the financial services side. And we've touched on it before, but it doesn't hurt to talk about it, especially since we're talking about struggles, right? So my background is nursing, and this is, you can imagine, through COVID, I was working 2 nursing jobs. Some weeks I worked 12 hours, all 12-hour shifts. So it would be some weeks I would work 4 days a week, up to 6 days a week I was working. So I was barely ever home. And my son didn't even know who I was, right? So that's around the time we started the financial services industry. And the only reason I got into it was because of my parents. My dad was retiring back in 22. It was 2021, 22 time. And he asked me being the oldest, usually he asks me about different things, so he was wondering if I knew anything about retirement stuff. And I just knew the basics that most people do because of working a regular job. You might have heard of 401ks, Roth IRAs, different things like that. So I started digging. I did some research to see what all is out there. How can it benefit my parents when they retire? And sadly, what I found was 90% of the financial industry is set up in a way it still benefits you, but most of your money is going to pay commissions and fees. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, because people need to be paid for the services they're offering and stuff like that. But not all of your money, right? If you're trying to set it up for your financial future, if all that money is going to them, how's that going to benefit you? So that's actually why I got into the business, to help my parents first off. And I just did it on the side. I got my license and stuff like that, and just help family and friends on the side. Then finally, 2022 is when we decided to go full time, because we realized this is something a lot of people need that are out there, because everyone struggles with finding out, hey, I don't know anything about finances. Because again, this is stuff that we should have been taught growing up in school. Like schools spend so much money toward teaching people different things, which are important, but they should add finances in there, because that's one of the biggest things that people struggle with growing up. I think I saw the statistics a couple of weeks ago. One of the biggest reasons for divorce is financial problems. So if we grew up in that surrounding of learning about finances and know what we're doing, those are struggles you can avoid, right? So that's why we got into doing that, and then going starting to post stuff on social media. That's another struggle that happened. So I hate being on camera. I still do, but I think me and Kyle have gotten more comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes any sense, right? And that's what entrepreneurship is. You're always learning to grow. You have to be resilient, and you have to learn as you go through struggles, because if not, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to learn through your mistakes, learn through your failures. It's only a failure if you didn't learn from it. So if you learn from it, then you're going to do it better next time, if you don't quit, right? And that's where the resilience comes in. You have to find purpose in that struggle. Why are you going through that struggle? Is it to make you better? Because something we talked about this before we jumped on the podcast. We were talking about why people that win the lottery lose all their money so fast, right? Most people, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't one of them. Most people want to get to that end result without going through that journey or the struggle, right? We want to get to that end result of having the money and stuff like that. But if you don't go through that journey, if you don't go through that struggle, that's where the real prize is, because that makes you the person that you have to be to keep that money, right? So that's why get rich quick schemes don't work well, because if you don't learn how to make that money, you're not going to keep it. That's why lottery winners lose all their money, because they didn't never learn how to keep that money or what to do with it, right? Um, Sorry, Kyle, I've been babbling on. Why don't
No.
you take it from there?
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I I don't know the statistic, but yeah, most lottery winners end up in the same, financial position that they were in, probably within a few short years after. Some even obviously, that amount of money and just a quick influx like that can actually, potentially destroy themselves and or their family. I've heard of those stories too. So it's not always a great idea to win the lottery, just because of what comes with it, and it can be a quick influx of cash that you weren't prepared for mentally, physically, or even emotionally, right? And so with that, yeah, we talked. You talked a little bit about like the process of becoming the person that you want to be and going through that, and some of the struggles that you went through, and thank you for sharing those. I had struggles as well early on in my business, being that when I first got started in the financial space, I was either 20 or 21, fresh out of college, and you had the luxury of your parents and family members, friends, like looking to you for advice on what to do financially. I didn't have that. I was actually brought into the industry by my aunt and my mom, and so they'd already helped my family that needed any financial help. And then I was left to my friends, which who were my friends at the time. For a 21-year-old, they were other 21-year-olds, right? Some still in college, some out of college, some that are just spending all their money partying, some that are maybe starting a small little side business, but nobody just had any extra money for doing anything financially. So at the beginning of my business journey, I didn't have anybody to help, and I wasn't aware of marketing and how to get my name out there or to start to build a brand or to build, to post on social media. I hated getting on the camera too. I was just like you. Actually, funny story. I went to college for computer programming because I used to have such bad social anxiety, not being able to talk to people. And now that's all I do for a living anymore is talk to people and post content on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. And my face is usually on every single one of them, me talking, because that's what the world has come to. That's what social media has come to. And especially when you have a business, if you're not recording content, if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not telling people what you do and how you can help them, there are other people that are doing that in your space and they're going to pass you, right? So you almost have to be on social media nowadays. But back to the struggles I went through when I was young, I just didn't have anybody to help at the time. So I had to get a job. I had a full-time job, and my business that I wanted to be full-time, I had to kind of put off to the side, make it my side business, and just had to start slowly building it over time. Going through education, training courses, getting better, sharpening my sword as people talk about, when they're, what is it, in the metaphorical idea. But like there was a lot of that. And for the first 2 to 3 years, I didn't have many clients. And then I started to learn about marketing. And that was about 2020, 2021, when I started to learn about marketing and how there were companies that would provide you leads and people that want your help. And, you could pay a marketing company to bring you interested people. That was my first kind of breakthrough, learning about, I can get people that are actually interested in my services. And how do I do more of that? And there's really only so many ways to do your marketing, but I've kind of honed in on that and realized that all businesses need to focus on marketing at first, because if you don't have a client, or if you don't have somebody to help, where is your next piece of business going to come from? So I learned that marketing is super important. And I believe at some level, we're all marketers. You either do it or you don't do it. And to the success that you do it is probably to the success of what your business is and what it's going to look like, you know? And so with that, those are some of my struggles. And to get through it, I just had to keep chipping away and just take it one day at a time. And hey, what can I do to get better today? And for me, I made it a goal that I was only going to work 2 years at my job that I had before I was going to leave that and quit and go full time on my business. So I set a timeline, and I set it a goal that I was going to be full time in my business within 2 years. Now, I didn't feel comfortable. I definitely stretched myself, and I made it happen. I took the leap, and I did it successfully in May of 2021. That's when I went full time in my business, and I haven't looked back since. And so, like, you've gotta go through the battles that come with being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, and just living life nowadays. And as it is, there's so many battles that people face. And that was my struggle. That was my journey. And I had to find my purpose. I knew that my purpose was I wanted to help people with money and with finances, after seeing a huge role that was played in my family's life when we had the unexpected passing of my aunt about actually 8 years ago, almost to the day. Um, I had to stick to my purpose and know that this is where I want to be. It's just not going to come to me overnight, like somebody may have happened to them when they win the lottery. But it's been an 8 year journey, or at least since that day. That's what kind of shifted my mindset to what I wanted to do. And you've got to trust the process. And I think that's what it comes down to a lot. Trust the process, trust yourself, and just chasing your vision and chasing your purpose in life, whatever it is that you're brought here to do.
That's the thing. I think a lot of times we don't realize when we stop ourselves from following the dreams that we have and the visions that were placed in us, you're you're taken away from the purpose you were here for, right? Because think about the authors that there's so many authors and business owners out there that never took action, so they're not actually known authors, right?
Yeah.
What is that? I think it was it End Milet, I think, talked about how when you get to your deathbed, all the dreams you had of starting a business, or if all the books you had visioned writing or whatever, if you never did any of that, those dreams are going to be surrounding you at your deathbed saying, "Why you didn't give birth to us," right? And think about all the lives you could have changed doing that. If Kyle and I never posted ourselves on social media, we wouldn't have been able to impact the people's lives that we did impact. And if we, I think looking back, I was just being selfish. I was thinking about, oh,
Mhm.
I don't want to look bad on camera. I don't want to be the one, on there. And that's just selfish thoughts. But on the other side, if I wasn't selfish and I started posting things, and because we know stuff that could benefit so many people. So if you're thinking, watching this, if you're thinking, oh man, I have some great ideas, but you're not taking action, you're not living your purpose. What is your purpose? What are those ideas that you have? Are you living those out? Because you can't imagine how many people you could touch, how many lives you could change just because of that purpose that you have. That they're crying for that, right? They're
Hmm.
starving for that benefit that you could provide them, but you're not out there providing it, right? So think about all those, and then also like you gotta prioritize things, right? And then there's also celebrating the small victories. Like after I remember after we posted our first video that took us so long to record, even though it was only 30 seconds, it might have taken us 30 like five hours because me and my wife would be arguing with what to post or all this stuff. But I remember after posting it, the joy it brought me afterwards, like, oh man, it was a nervous, but it was like a bittersweet moment because it was nervousness, like, oh man, my face is out there now. So it's scary because of like, oh no, what are people gonna think? But at the same time, it was like, oh man, I'm happy I did it because now people will know what I do and they can come to me if they need help with stuff, because like what Kyle and I do, guys, is like we like to provide value and teach people what's out there, and that way, if they use us, great. If they don't use us, great. At least you have the information. And that's why we're also doing this course, and the course is free. We just want to provide free value for people to learn what's out there. That way, they're not growing up not knowing what's out there, right? Because there's so many
Hmm.
more things you guys can do. And so that's, again, going back to finding purpose in the struggle. You're going to go through so many struggles when you're trying to do good, you're gonna have, because it's easier to do what's not good. It's so much easier to be lazy. It's so much easier to bench watch a show for hours and hours when you could be working on your mindset, when you could be reading a book to get better, when you could be doing research to figure out your goals and go after it. Right? That's where having a why is huge too, because if you have a big enough why, it doesn't matter what struggle, that why is going to give you the passion to push through those struggles to get to where you want to get to. So that's something to think about. Like, what is your purpose of getting to that end goal? And is all these struggles that are going to come, is that going to stop you from getting there? If it is, maybe your why is not big enough. So maybe that's something you need to focus on. What is your why? Think about, sit down and journal. It's like, okay, these are all the things I'm thankful for. Why would I do this business? What could that benefit others? That could be your why. There's so many things that could be your why. So you might have to think about what your why is. Because if your why is not big enough to make you cry, if your why is not big enough to scare you, your why is not big enough.
I like that. One other, yeah, don't lose your voice now. One last thing I wanted to touch on that I was thinking about as you were chatting is like the good old days. How often is it, that we're sitting here when we think about the good old days and we're thinking about maybe some time in our life a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But like right now, we are creating the good old days that, 5 years from now, we're going to be looking back on. And for us, we're gonna be like, remember when we started that little podcast thing, and hopefully 5 years from now it's still going on and we're on a much bigger platform and a bigger level, and we can go back and laugh at some of these early on shows where, like, we struggled through it. It was probably uncomfortable, maybe a little bit cringeworthy because we just didn't know what we were doing, but we got started and we did it anyways. And yeah, here we are, actually, I guess already 50 episodes in. But like, try to remember that and to just appreciate where you're at, what you're going through, whether it's great right now or even if you're struggling right now. Like your tests, a great line I heard from one of my other buddies was that your test will become your testament. So my struggle getting into the financial space and helping people when I was 21 is now my testament. I've been doing this since I was 21. Not many people start off in the financial space at that age. Renji, your test was you were a nurse, you were in the nursing field, and you had to find a way to kind of jumble the two to make sure that you could actually have a successful financial service business before jumping in, with diving in head first. That's what you did. You balanced the two, and then you went full time yourself. So it's like, we've got to appreciate where we're at and almost come from a stance of gratitude and appreciation, because someday we're going to be looking back on this time period of our life, and it's going to be the good old days, which is crazy to think, because we don't ever stop and think about that, and the last thing I'll leave us with today, and Renji, I'll toss it over to you if you have anything else too, but just journaling and like writing down your goals is a good way to always keep your purpose, your vision, and your gratitude in front of you on a daily basis. I at least write my goals once every morning. Sometimes if I'm having a tough day, I'll write them in the middle of the day just to recenter myself and refocus myself. But that is the best way to help you get through the struggle and to make sure not only you find your purpose, but you keep it, top of mind, and to help you overcome any obstacles that come up throughout your days, throughout your weeks, or throughout your years. All right. So that's all I got to say. Renji, do you have anything else to wrap us up with for today?
All I would say is just embrace the struggle, embrace the journey, because that journey is going to make you the person you were meant to be. And if you avoid that, you won't be there. You won't get there. And if you don't get there, like we said before, if you are here for a purpose, and the purpose you have is going to bring so much joy and fulfillment for other people, but you're not following that purpose, there's people starving at the other end of that are not going to get to that what they needed to. Your purpose would help so many more people, and if you don't take that path, all those people are going to suffer. Right, so embrace the journey, embrace the suck, right? Like I've heard so many people say, and because that is the growth. That's who you want to be to get to those, because that's one thing you see in a lot of successful people. If you take away all their money, if you take away all their success, because they went through that journey, they'll be right back where they were before they lost it, because they know what they need to do. They know the type of person they need to be to get back to being successful again. But if they never went through that journey, if they never went through those struggles and pushed through and learned what to do to get through that, they wouldn't have got there. So this is why successful people, you can take them away from their money and everything. If you leave them with everything they've learned, they'll get right back to there within no time. So embrace those struggles, embrace that journey, because that's how you become the person you were meant to be. Hope this was
Absolutely.
helpful for everyone that's watching. And if anything, hopefully this is encouraging for you to start writing that book, start researching what you need to do, start creating that LLC to get going with whatever your purpose is, whatever you were meant to be, whatever your dream was. Because if you don't start, you'll never get there. And make
Absolutely.
yourself better.
I love it. Just get started. Just get started and keep pushing, one day at a time. And with that, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you guys thought below. And if this video was helpful for you, share it with a friend, share it with a loved one or a family member or a colleague that you think may be able to benefit too. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.